But first, and I have been attempting for quite some time to get her on the programme, as I said, one of the most successful dual-purpose trainers of all time, somebody with an extraordinary storied background both in equestrianism and in horse racing. Her achievements are too numerous, really, to list and to do her justice, but suffice to say she's won every major prize in England and Ireland jumping and has now turned into one of the top flat trainers as well. She is, of course, Jessica Harrington. Jessie, good morning, welcome to Leopardstown, or you should be saying to me, welcome to Leopardstown,
well,
I guess.
Welcome you to Leopardstown, and good morning.
Thank you very much. I hope you're going to be warm enough through the next hour and a half or so.
You did promise me a nice warm room, and I arrive in this morning and we find we're in the festival marquee, which is a little bit bright and breezy, but the sun is coming out and should be fine.
I feel like I'm already on the back foot, something you're certainly not. If I'd asked you 30-odd years ago when you first took out a permit to train horses how the next 3 decades would pan out, could you have possibly imagined what you would have done jumping and now on the flat?
I couldn't have even imagined anything. You know, when I first started training, I had, 3 horses. I actually trained my first winner here as a public trainer, and Peter Scudamore rode it.
Really?
A 3-year-old hurdle. It's when they had an extra meet. They used to have a meeting here, a jump meeting here in November, and it's sort of middle end of November, and that was my first winner. So Leopardstown has very fond memories for me, but you know, start with 3 horses and end up with what I've got now is just, you know, you couldn't write the script, as you would say.
And was it a hobby when you started, or were you thinking, no, this is actually going to be my next career?
No, when I started, it was to get one day beyond the next and one horse on the next. And, you know, I thought when I had 3, I thought it'd be great to have 10. When I had 10, I thought it'd be great to have 20. I realised that probably quite shortly into starting the training that the best thing to do is to have winners at Christmas, Easter, Punchestown. Even if you only had 3 winners a year, if you actually had winners there, people noticed you. If you won 5 races at a midweek meeting, probably people didn't even know you trained. And I did find that training winners at high-profile meetings was the best way to get noticed. And I was lucky enough to do that my first couple of years. And then it sort of grew from there. And was it going to always be a business? I suppose it had to be, because we had the farm, and Johnny was a bloodstock agent, and something had to pay the bills. So we just sort of turned it into a business.
And I mentioned you'd had an illustrious career as an event rider primarily, but also all forms of equestrianism, really. How enjoyable was that spell as an eventer, riding for Ireland, being selected for the Olympics, and going all around the world with the Irish team?
That was great fun, because it sort of came as a sort of slight surprise, because I had ridden for Ireland before I got married first time, and then came back to Ireland, married Johnny, and it was my father who said, I've got 2 homebreds, I think you ought to ride them in events. And I said, well, I'm not keeping them with me, because at that stage I had 2 children, and then Emma was on the way. I said, you can keep them. My father was then well in his 80s, and I'll just ride them. And that's how that started. And they were both homebred mares, the best of which was a mare called Amoy, who actually ran in a novice steeplechase round here in between going eventing.
Amazing, amazing. Do you think we did more with horses in those days? Were they more versatile, or did we just try different things more readily?
I think we just, probably we didn't have as many horses, so they all had to do everything. You know, I remember years ago, my father had a polo pony, because he used to play a lot of polo, and the polo pony used to hunt in the winter, race in the spring, and play polo all summer. You know, so they all had to do everything.
So you were quite used to the idea of, horses being multidisciplined, if you like. Did that sort of set the grounding quite well for you for the training career?
Yeah, probably did. But the training career was sort of, I had no, as it were, formal education in the training career. I'd never been to someone, work for another trainer. But what I had done is that Johnny being a bloodstock agent, I used to go and stay with a lot of his friends in England. Mainly it was Peter Warwin, John Dunlop, David Morley. And I'd go out on the gallops, and I'd look and listen and go around the yards and see what they were doing. And I suppose that's, a bit of it rubbed off somewhere along the line. And when I started training, I used to ask them a lot of questions.
You and your late husband, Johnny, he's much missed. You were a wonderful partnership. What were the complementary skills you each brought to one another?
He loved people, I didn't. I loved horses. People were my problem. He loved people. He would talk, he'd get on an aeroplane, and by the time he got off at the far end, he'd be best friends with both people who sat either side of him. I'd get onto an aeroplane, I'd sit there saying, "Don't you dare talk to me." So, he was a people person, I was a horse person. Well, since sadly he died, I've had to sort of probably become more of a people person, but I'm trying to get myself to be a people person.
It's interesting because certainly from a media point of view, I think most of us would agree you've always been pretty approachable and quite friendly. I can't speak for everybody. That's certainly the way that it's come over. So you say that doesn't it's not something that comes naturally to be really out there and gregarious and on the front foot.
It doesn't come to me naturally, but I soon learned that any bit of publicity, if you're polite to someone, you might get there, and publicity is good publicity, and so bite back the fact that you mightn't like it, get on and do it.
How different did life become for you when Moscow Flyer came along? Because he was really the horse that sort of propelled you to another level, and he was for most people a complete horse of a lifetime.
He was amazing. Johnny and we bought him in the Derby sale. I obviously couldn't train because I couldn't get him to win a bumper. We thought he was very slow. In fact, in hindsight, which is great, he actually didn't stay 2 miles, and that was his problem on the flat. But he was a horse of a lifetime. What he did and what he did for me in the yard was just amazing. And there were so many stories around him because his owner, Brian Carney, it was the first horse he'd ever owned. He'd never been interested in racing, but his son was, and thought it'd be a good idea when his father retired that he should have another outlet other than just playing golf.
And what an outlet.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a remarkable racehorse. And some of those battles he had with the likes of Azertiot will live long in the memory. If there was a favourite day for you, which one would it be?
Well, there's kind of two. It's the day that he beat Azertiot in the Tingle Creek.
Oh, wonderful.
That I thought was the most brilliant race. I thought Barry rode the most amazing race that day. Taking it up, looking round, pretending that he had nothing underneath him when he had all the horse, and the horse staying very strong up the hill. And we're seeing it here. It still makes, when I see that race, it still sort of makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, because it was just an amazing race, and the amazing reception that he got when he got back in the winner's enclosure.
I can never remember an occasion like it at Sandown, and that Sandown winner's enclosure is made for a brilliant reception as well, but it really was hairs on the back of your neck.
It really, it was amazing that day.
Ruby Walsh really beating himself up as well for being beaten on Azertiot, but I'm not sure anyone could have beaten Moscow that day.
He was very, very good that day. He just loved getting out in front, jumping, just doing everything, and that day he did jump well, because he did have his little bit of a record, 3 wins fall, but actually, other than the first time that he ever ran over fences, he actually never fell. He just managed to give Barry absolutely no chance of staying on.
Well, do you think that was almost he was too good? He just got lackadaisical sometimes, a bit like Corto Star used to do at the last fence occasionally.
Yeah, you can talk to Barry about it. He said he just, he lived near the edge, always. And that was really probably why he did do it.
Do you think that's a trait of great horses, that they are slightly on the edge?
I think they are, because to be great, they do live on the edge. They take chances. They get away with them, 95% of the time. There's always that 5% it doesn't quite work.
And I mentioned at the beginning of the programme, you're one of the very few people to have won the 3 big ones, as I think most of us still like to call them at Cheltenham, the Champion Hurdle, the Champion Chase and the Gold Cup. And it wasn't until you won the Gold Cup, Sizing John, I didn't realise you'd never even had a runner in the race before. You like to be pretty selective with these things. You say you like to win at the big festivals, but you hit the target.
Well, I just I'd never had a horse good enough to run in it, and that was the reason I hadn't. And it was the same, actually, last year. Magic Light was my first runner in the Grand National. So, I'd never had a horse that I thought was suitable.
And so Sizing John came and delivered. How's he doing? Because it's been a difficult road back.
He's the bane of my life. I think I spent more time worrying about him than I ever worried about any of my children. But anyway, no, he managed to get a hairline fracture in his in his knee, and he had a screw put in it on Friday. He's still down in the vets, and he'll be back up with me tomorrow. And look, it's not a leg. Hopefully it can heal, and if it heals, he might be back. And if he doesn't heal, he'll go into grateful retirement.
Is he a horse who would be okay to cope with retirement? Is he quite a kind horse to deal with?
Well, he's a brilliant horse. He would, if I can get him sound enough, he'd absolutely love to do all those retraining of racehorse classes, because he is a real show-off. You know, show him a camera, show him people. Oh, he grows another 2 inches on his large 17 hands and says, "Look at me."
It sounds as though, I know he's won you a Gold Cup, so of course you're going to be fond of him, but it sounds like you're particularly fond of him as an animal.
Yeah, he's a bit of a character, because when he was in Henry, and then I luckily inherited him, he used to have a goat, but the goat stayed with Henry because he was a box walker and a weaver. And then for a couple of years I kept him away from the yard, actually right down the middle of the farm, and that seemed to suit him. And then now I've actually, for the last 6 months, 9 months, I've been keeping him in an outdoor paddock, and he loves that. But he has his own things he does. If he doesn't want to be caught in the morning, he won't be caught. When he has his own routine, he comes in from riding, he rolls about 4 times, throws himself around on the ground. But he is a character. He likes music. You ride him with music on you, he thinks it's great. And we all know when he's in good form, he starts walking around, swinging his head around. Brilliant. If he's in bad form, he just walks.
So he really is a character. When you said he was accompanied by a goat, it reminded me of the great remittance man who went everywhere with a sheep,
yeah,
trained by your great friend Nicky Henderson. I'm always very entertained when you come to Cheltenham and you've been staying with Nicky during the course of the week, what that conversation, or how that conversation unfolds over the dinner table, if you've each had a good or bad day, and comparing notes. Is it quite entertaining, or can it be quite...
I'd say very entertaining. We never moan and groan about each other. Sometimes I have bad days, Nicky has bad days, but if one of us has had a winner, we can celebrate.
And there was that momentous day, of course, when you finished first and second in the champion hurdle, both with horses owned by JP McManus, Jeski for you, and My Tentor yours for Nicky. How was the chat over dinner that night?
Actually, it was very good. He said if anyone was going to beat him in the champion hurdle, it was rather it was me than anyone else. So I had to apologise for beating him. But I said, you're going to get your own back on me, so don't worry. Nicky's had so many winners at Cheltenham, and he's such a brilliant trainer. You know, if I can get one over him there at Cheltenham, sure, it's great. But we don't fight over it.
And the lovely thing about Jeski was that it was sort of after his champion hurdle, really, that he then got a bit of a public following, and he kept coming back and digging out a little bit more just when you thought that his best days were over. Yeah,
he was another horse. He was a great character. He tried very hard. He loved the spring of the year, and also he was he loved good ground, spring of the year, sun on his back. He never ran well. Funny enough, he never ran well here at Christmas. He just sort of basically was saying, God, it's too cold, wait for the spring, I'll be all right.
It was lovely to see all the old boys that he used to race against here yesterday, particularly Hurricane Fly, who he had some wonderful battles with.
Oh, wonderful battles with him, and I saw them yesterday, and those horses, there was Hurricane Fly, Bravenker, and Hardy Eustace.
Yeah.
And they all looked great, and they looked all so delighted to be, as it were, back in the limelight.
You yourself have remained in the limelight, and in a sense that limelight has intensified through the last 5 years. You used to be able to enjoy your summer. Now you enjoy it with winners at Royal Ascot and just about everywhere else. The renaissance, if you like, as a top-class flat trainer, has that sort of taken you by surprise a little bit?
Well, yeah, definitely. But you're only as good as the horses you get sent. And I've been very lucky to have some very good backing on the flat and been sent some very nice horses. And they've done me proud. It's the horses and the owners and the breeders that have sent them to me. I just hope I don't make a nonsense training them. But that's my job. And look, it's been amazing. The funny thing coming into last year was so extraordinary because I knew I had no, Alpha Centauri, who had given me an amazing year the year before, won in my first classic. She had been retired because she got injured, and I knew none of my 2-year-olds of that year were really any good. So I was looking, coming into last year, 2019, saying, I haven't got some great 3-year-olds, let's hope the 2-year-olds are all right. And then sort of in March, we were kept on, this one's all right, that's okay, that'll do, this will do, that's going all right. And I suddenly thought, this is not right. They must be all useless.
So it was one or the other, wasn't it?
I had one. I was actually convinced they were all useless. And then, actually, we had a very slow start to the season, and it wasn't really until June we had our first 2-year-old winner. And then it just didn't look back. It was quite extraordinary.
With Albania and Mill Isle and so many more. Do you get as big a kick out of the big flat winners? More of a kick out of the flat winners?
Not more of a flat, no. Or I get a kick out of any winner, whether it's a maiden race in Leopardstown or a winner on Longchamp. Each winner is, it's very special in its own way. There's never a bad winner. That winner is, has pleased a breeder, an owner, and me in winning that race, whether it'll be a claiming race or a Group 1 race.
And when you've achieved all these things, when you've had Royal Ascot winners, you've had Classic winners, you've won all the big races at Cheltenham, you've come very close to winning the Grand National, is there a concrete ambition now for you? Do you think, well, this is the one I really, really want, or do you just keep going?
I know there's loads of ambitions that I want. I want to win a Grand National. I want to win the one race in Cheltenham that has evaded me, the 3-mile hurdle. And I'd like to, look, there's loads of other things. I'd like to, I've been lucky enough to win an Irish Classic. I'd like to win an English Classic. I'd love to go down to Australia and win a race down there. And there's a Breeders' Cup. There's loads of things to go and win, I promise you. I'm not giving up yet.
There's a good list. And you've got great backup as well. I mean, we talked about how important Johnny was, and you were a training team, really. And now you've got your daughters, Emma and Kate, helping you out as well. Just tell us how it all works on a sort of logistical, emotional, whichever level.
That would be quite funny. How does it all work? Well, Emma was the first one that came and worked for me. And she basically, she's my hirer, my firer, my accountant, the one that makes sure the bills are paid, people pay their bills. And so she's, okay, give her a title. She's office administrator. Sounds frightfully grand, but that's, I suppose she's that.
It sounds from what you're saying like she needs a much grander title than office administrator.
I know, much grander, because she really does. She works very, very hard. And then Kate, after Johnny died, Kate had been working at Ballydoyle, and then she decided she'd come up and work for me. And the first thing I said, well, that's great, but you've got to get on. I said, the first thing I said, I'm not going to be the referee between you and Emma fighting, because Kate and Emma, even though they're 11 years apart, when they were growing up, they used to squabble a lot. And I said, I'm not going to have you fighting, and I'm not going to be the referee. So those are the ground lines. But Kate does a lot in the yard. She does the lists now. She gives me the work lists for me to do. She does a lot of race planning, which then, of course, then going into a horse in a completely different race. But that's, that's par for the course. So she's brilliant. And then just 18 months ago, Richie, my son-in-law, who's married to Emma, came and worked for me as well. So I said, God, Richie, do you want to come and work for your mother-in-law, your wife, and your sister-in-law? That sounds like too much like hard work. But somehow he seems so far so good. He's brilliant, and his main thing is basically PR and getting new owners, because it's a bit hard for me to get new owners. Most of my friends are getting the other end of their life. They're going out the other way. So we need younger owners to keep going, and he's done a great job on that. He still works at Punchestown, especially working up to the festival as well. But he's been a great help, and I have a very good secretary, Ali, and Amy and Neve also work in the office. And as long as I'm not really let too much near a computer, because I probably delete things, I lose things on my desk, I lose things in the computer. But other than that, we get on fairly well.
Well, you're going to get on that much better if the results are as good as they've been, certainly through the last couple of years. It sounds like a system that's working incredibly well. For the moment, Jessica Harrington, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And Jessie will be with us after this break, when I will be joined by the editor of the Racing Post in Ireland, Richard Forrestal.
Subscribe to Racing TV to be notified when more Luck on Sunday videos are appearing online. And don't forget to join me for the show every Sunday morning from 9 o'clock with the best guests.